There is a brutal difference between suspecting a betrayal and witnessing it with your own eyes, between imagining the pain and feeling it rip through your chest like shattered glass. Lauren Solar discovered this difference on the night of December 24th, when she should have been celebrating love, but found a lie instead. Chicago, with its Christmas lights reflecting off the river canal, had never seemed so treacherous to her. The wind off Lake Michigan that had always calmed her now carried the bitter taste of truth. Married for 8 years to Clayton Vance, a successful import-export businessman, Lauren had built a life that seemed perfect from the outside. A lakefront apartment on Lakeshore Drive, consolidated careers, international trips, dinners at sophisticated restaurants. But on that Christmas Eve, at 29 years old and wearing a red dress that had cost a fortune, she stood before the Penthouse at the edge of the Gold Coast, where Clayton had said he would spend the night resolving an office emergency. The very same penthouse where, through the wide glass window, she could perfectly see her husband toasting with champagne next to a blonde woman, while the Christmas tree blinked in the background and wrapped gifts rested under the illuminated branches. The Christmas he had planned was not with her, and what Lauren would do next would change everything forever. Lauren Solar had always believed she had built a solid marriage, not the kind of relationship seen in romantic movies with extravagant declarations and dramatic gestures, but something real, mature, built on reliable foundations. Clayton Vance was the man she had met at 21, when she was still finishing her architecture degree, and he was already running the foreign trade company inherited from his father. Chicago was their city. Born and raised there, Lauren knew every corner of the city, from the historic brownstones of the near North Side to the beaches that stretched in an elegant line along the waterfront. Her architecture firm was located in one of the restored historic buildings on Wacker Drive, where the facades told stories of a golden age. She had 6 employees, high-end residential projects, and a reputation built project by project over the last 5 years. Clayton worked at the port and logistics hubs, managing operations for importing European wines, Greek olive oils, and Italian fabrics. His company, Vance International Trade, occupied an entire floor in a modern commercial building near the river, with a view of the huge cargo movements that entered and left daily, bringing and taking goods to all corners of the world. Their apartment was in one of the most coveted buildings on North Michigan Avenue, facing the lake. 2,700 square feet of porcelain flooring, a wide balcony where they had breakfast on Sundays while watching joggers and cyclists on the path, a minimalist decoration that Lauren herself had designed. 3 bedrooms, including a master suite with a walk-in closet that looked like it came out of a decor magazine. She took pride in this life. She took pride in having built an independent career, in not being just the wife of, and in maintaining her own professional identity in a city where everyone in her circle knew each other. Chicago had that small-town feel within its massive urban structure. It was impossible to go to the supermarket without meeting at least 3 acquaintances. Impossible to dine out without crossing paths with clients or friends. December had always been Lauren's favorite month. The city transformed completely. Christmas lights adorned the magnificent mile. The traditional giant Christmas tree was set up at Millennium Park. Entire families strolled along the sidewalks, enjoying the winter atmosphere, which, even in the freezing cold, maintained a special energy. The downtown shops buzzed. Restaurants filled up. There was a special magic in the air. This December, however, had started differently. Subtle, but different. Clayton was distant. Not in an obvious way. He still kissed her in the morning before leaving for work. He still asked about the firm's projects, still shared the bed with her every night. But there was a present absence, a constant distraction. He checked his phone more frequently, smiling at the screen. Sometimes he looked away when she approached. Lauren tried to talk. "Is everything okay? You seem worried." And Clayton would respond with that rehearsed smile, that reassuring tone that now, in retrospect, was absolutely false. "Work, honey. The end of the year is always complicated, you know. Many contracts closing. A lot of bureaucracy." She believed him. Of course she believed him. Because why wouldn't she believe the man she had shared her life with for 8 years, with whom she had built a fortune, with whom she had planned the future? On December 23rd, Clayton arrived home with news. "Honey, an emergency came up at work. A serious problem with a shipment that arrived today. I'm going to need to spend Christmas Eve at the office resolving this. It's an important client. I can't leave it until after the holidays." Lauren felt a sting of disappointment, but she understood, or at least she pretended to understand, because a small voice inside her whispered that something was wrong. But she pushed that voice far away, suffocating it with rationality. "All right, I'll make dinner here, and you come when you manage to resolve it." Actually, Clayton avoided her gaze. "I'll need to stay at the office. It might take all night. Why don't you go to your mother's house? She always complains that we spend too little time there." It was at that moment that the suspicion, previously just a whisper, became a scream. Clayton had never, in 8 years, suggested she go alone to her mother's for the holidays. He valued the image of a united couple, of a structured family. It made no sense. But Lauren said nothing. She just nodded, watched as he packed a small bag, claiming he might need clean clothes if he had to stay until the next day, and saw him leave the apartment with a quick kiss on her forehead. As soon as the door closed, Lauren stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the lights of the Christmas tree they had set up together 2 weeks prior. The sound of the city wind, entering through the cracked balcony, the scent of artificial pine mixed with the cold air, and a growing, visceral certainty that her marriage was a lie. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She simply grabbed her purse, the car keys, and decided she needed answers. Clayton's office was a 20-minute drive, but when Lauren arrived there at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve, the building was completely dark. There was no emergency. There was no urgent work. There was no Clayton. That was when she remembered. The penthouse at the edge of the lake. Clayton had bought it 6 months ago, saying it would be an investment to rent out to foreign executives coming to do business. "It will pay for itself," he had said. And Lauren, focused on her own projects, hadn't questioned it. Now, driving through the streets of Chicago with her hands trembling on the wheel, she understood. It wasn't an investment. It was the perfect setting for a betrayal. The penthouse was in a luxury building with 24-hour security and a private elevator. Lauren parked across the street and looked up. Top floor, lights on. And there, through the massive glass window that offered a panoramic view of the lake, she saw everything. Clayton, her husband, wearing a white dress shirt, dark pants, and that expensive watch she had given him for his birthday. He was holding a champagne glass and smiling. Next to him, a blonde woman in a gold dress, the kind that hugs the body and screams seduction. A Christmas tree in the corner of the room, decorated and lit, presents underneath, a feast prepared on the table. He had planned everything, a complete Christmas, just not with her. Lauren didn't cry, not yet. She just felt something inside her shatter and simultaneously harden, like glass that breaks and turns into sharp shards, ready to cut anyone who approaches. She picked up her phone. 11:15 p.m., 45 minutes until midnight, until Christmas, which Clayton would celebrate with another woman, while she, the legitimate wife, was supposed to be at home or at her mother's, conveniently out of the way. But Lauren Solar would not be conveniently forgotten. Not tonight. Not ever again. She got out of the car, crossed the street, and entered the building. The doorman tried to stop her politely, but she showed her ID with the same last name registered as the owner of the penthouse, and said with a glacial calm she didn't know she possessed, "I'm going to surprise my husband." In the elevator, as she went up 15 floors, Lauren looked at her own reflection in the mirror. Dark brown hair tied in a simple ponytail, a face without makeup, jeans and a white t-shirt. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had just discovered her life was a sham. But when the doors opened directly into the penthouse living room, because luxury penthouses always have private access, and Clayton and the blonde woman turned simultaneously with expressions of absolute shock. It was Lauren who held the power. "Merry Christmas, dear," she said, and her voice echoed like a sentence. The silence that followed was so dense that Lauren could hear the sound of the wind outside, even through the closed glass. Clayton stood paralyzed, the champagne glass suspended in the air as if time had frozen. The blonde woman, she must have been about 25, maybe less, opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Lauren." Clayton's voice came out raspy, almost inaudible. "What are you doing here?" The question was so absurd, so completely devoid of logic, that Lauren almost laughed. Almost, because there was nothing funny about that moment. Nothing. "What am I doing here?" She walked into the penthouse with slow, deliberate steps. Her eyes took in every detail of the scene. Carefully arranged, the table set for two with white porcelain plates, silver cutlery, scented candles, the roasted turkey cooling on a platter, the walnut pie still whole, the gifts wrapped in gold paper under the tree. I think the more pertinent question is, what are you doing here? The blonde woman finally found her voice. It was sharp, nervous. "Clayton, you said you were single. You said—" "Shut up, Megan." Clayton cut her off with a harshness Lauren had never heard before. Then he turned to Lauren, and she saw something in his eyes that appalled her. Anger. Not guilt, not shame, but anger. As if she were the intruder, as if she had ruined something that was his by right. "You shouldn't be here." "I shouldn't be here?" Lauren repeated the words slowly, letting them hang in the air. "In the apartment my husband bought with our money, where my husband is spending Christmas with another woman? You're right, Clayton. I definitely shouldn't be here. I should be at home waiting like an idiot, or at my mother's house, conveniently out of your way. That's what you planned, isn't it?" Clayton put the glass on the table with excessive force. The golden liquid jumped out, staining the white tablecloth. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be like this?" Lauren felt something hot rising through her chest, through her throat. It was fury, pure and incandescent. "How is it supposed to be? Then tell me, Clayton. Explain to me how you planned for this to work. You were going to spend the night here with her and go home tomorrow morning, saying work was very exhausting. And you were going to kiss me with the same mouth that kissed her. You were going to sleep in our bed after." She couldn't finish. Not because she lacked the words, but because saying it out loud made it too real, too concrete, too irreversible. Megan, now Lauren had a name to put to the face of the woman who had destroyed her marriage, took a step forward. She was beautiful, Lauren realized with a pang in her chest. Very beautiful. Straight blonde hair falling over her shoulders, a slender body in the tight gold dress, bronzed skin, impeccable makeup. She looked like she stepped out of an expensive perfume ad. "Look, I didn't know he was married, okay?" Megan spoke quickly, defensively. "He never mentioned you. He never wore a ring around me, never spoke of a wife or marriage or—" "6 months," Clayton interrupted, and this time his voice was defeated. He looked at the floor, unable to face Lauren. "We've been together for 6 months. 6 months. The apartment had been bought 6 months ago. The math was cruelly simple." "You bought this place for her?" It wasn't a question. It was a realization. All that talk about investment, about renting to executives, was a lie. I was going to tell you. Clayton finally looked at her, and there was something that could be mistaken for sincerity in his eyes, if Lauren were still foolish enough to believe him. I swear I was. I was just waiting for the right moment. The right moment? Lauren laughed, and the sound came out bitter, cutting. And when would that right moment be, Clayton? On our wedding anniversary? On my birthday? Or were you simply going to disappear one day and let me find out through divorce papers? I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me? For the first time, Lauren raised her voice. The scream echoed through the penthouse, making Megan recoil. You're sleeping with another woman, financing a parallel life, planning to spend Christmas with her while your wife stays at home alone, and you didn't want to hurt me? You think I'm stupid? I fell in love, Clayton said, and those 4 words were like a knife to Lauren's heart. Not because she still loved him. At that moment, watching the man she had shared 8 years of her life with, she realized she perhaps had never truly loved him. But because the disrespect embedded in that statement was monumental. He fell in love, as if that justified everything, as if love for someone else canceled out the vows, the years, the trust, the shared history. You fell in love, Lauren repeated, each word dripping with venom. And me? What was I while you were falling in love, Clayton? An obstacle, an inconvenience, an obligation you had to maintain until you found the courage to get rid of me. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Lauren cut him off. Her eyes swept over the penthouse again. It was beautiful, she admitted internally. Modern decoration, spectacular lake view, tasteful furniture. Probably expensive. Very expensive. How many of our projects did you cancel to pay for this? That trip to Europe we postponed? The kitchen renovation I wanted to do? The new car you said we couldn't buy yet? Clayton didn't answer, which was answer enough. Megan tried one more time. There were tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face now, ruining the black eyeliner. I really didn't know. He told me he was single, that he lived alone, that— How old are you? Lauren asked brusquely. 25, toi? Lauren nodded. Of course. Clayton was 37, she was 29, and he got a 24-year-old girl. A complete cliché. Do you work for him? Another assumption. But from Megan's expression, it was correct. I'm a sales assistant at Vance International. Her voice was a thread. I started 8 months ago. 8 months? 2 months before the romance started. Enough time for Clayton to plan everything, seduce her, build the fantasy that he was a free and available man. He will leave you, Lauren said to Megan, but kept her eyes fixed on Clayton. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, because men who betray wives always betray mistresses. It's also a matter of character, and his is well demonstrated here. It's not like that, Clayton started. Shut up, Lauren screamed, and this time it was Clayton who recoiled. You no longer have the right to speak to me. You no longer have the right to anything. She turned to leave, but then stopped. There was something else that needed to be said, something else that needed to be put out before she imploded. 8 years, she said with her back to them. 8 years of my life. I gave up job opportunities in other cities because you didn't want to leave Chicago. I turned down partnership offers in larger firms because you said you preferred to have me nearby. I put your name along with mine on everything I built because I believed we were a team. And for 6 months, while I worked to keep our life running, you were here with her, laughing at me. Now she turned, facing Clayton with an intensity that made him lower his eyes. You didn't just betray me. You stole 6 months of my life. 6 months that I could have used to free myself from you, to rebuild my life, to move on. But I was too busy being a faithful wife while you played at a double life. The tears finally came. Hot, furious, liberating. Lauren didn't try to contain them. "I hate you," she said. And there was a crystal truth in those 3 words. "I hate you more than I thought I could hate anyone. And I promise you, Clayton Vance, that you will regret every second of those 6 months. You will see me rebuild everything you tried to destroy. You will see me win. And you will know for the rest of your life that you had a woman who was worth it, and you were stupid enough to destroy that." She opened the elevator door, which was still open and waiting. But before entering, she turned one last time. "Merry Christmas, you son of a—" The doors closed, swallowing the image of Clayton, standing in the middle of the perfect penthouse, with his perfect mistress, and his perfectly ruined Christmas. And as the elevator descended, Lauren leaned her head against the cold metal wall and cried as she had never cried before. Lauren didn't remember how she got home. She remembered being in the elevator crying. Then she remembered standing in front of the building where she lived on North Michigan, holding the car keys with hands shaking so much she could barely get them into the lock. It was 2 a.m. on December 25th, Christmas. The city was silent, only the constant sound of the wind. In the distance, fireworks from some private party that was still holding out. The decorative lights on the trees along the street blinked in red and green, a celebration that now seemed grotesquely inappropriate to her. The apartment was exactly as she had left it. The Christmas tree they had set up together, another lie, another sham, was still lit in the corner of the room. The presents she had bought for Clayton were underneath, carefully wrapped. An Italian watch that cost the equivalent of 2 months' rent. A set of Mont Blanc pens he had mentioned wanting. A trip to Napa Valley she had planned as a surprise. Lauren looked at those perfectly wrapped packages, and something inside her simply broke. Not the delicate break from before, but a complete and final shattering. She picked up the first present and threw it against the wall, then the second, the third, one after another, until they were all scattered on the floor, torn paper, destroyed bows, contents exposed, like the lies of her marriage. It wasn't enough. She went to the shared walk-in closet, half hers, half his. Clothes organized by color and occasion, shoes lined up, accessories in labeled drawers, the perfect order she had always maintained. And she started taking everything of his out. All the impeccably ironed dress shirts, all the folded pants, all the expensive suits, all the silk ties. She threw everything on the living room floor, a growing pile of fabric and leather, and materialized lies. Still not enough. Lauren picked up the phone. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do, but her fingers moved of their own accord, opening the banking app. Joint accounts, shared cards, investments in both their names. 8 years of joint financial construction. She transferred everything she legally could to her personal accounts. It wasn't theft. It was protection. Because men like Clayton, she now understood with painful clarity, didn't just destroy you emotionally. They destroyed you financially too. And she wouldn't be left with nothing while he financed the mistress's life. At 5 a.m., as the sun began to lighten the horizon over Lake Michigan, Lauren was sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by the wreckage of her previous life, and she made the most important decision she had ever made. She would not be a victim. She would not be the betrayed woman who retreats in shame, who hides her face, who whispers about her own humiliation. She would be the woman who gets up, shakes off the dust, and rebuilds everything bigger and better. The phone rang. Clayton. She didn't answer. It rang again and again. 17 missed calls before 7 a.m. Lauren blocked the number. Messages started coming from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Please give me a chance to explain. It was a mistake. I love you. You know I love you. Don't make hasty decisions. Think about what we built together." Each message was a bigger insult, Lauren blocked that number too. At 8 a.m. on Christmas morning, she called her lawyer. Rita Constantino was a specialist in family law and one of the most feared women in Chicago courts. Lauren had met her years ago at a networking event and had always admired her firmness. "Rita, I need to eat you. I want a divorce, and I want it to be fast, efficient, and I want him to lose everything he can legally lose." There was a pause on the other side. It was Christmas, but Rita had known Lauren long enough to know she wouldn't call unless it was urgent. "Tell me everything." Lauren told every detail. The betrayal, the penthouse, the mistress, the 6 months of lies, the diverted money. Rita listened in absolute silence, and when Lauren finished, the lawyer simply said, "He is completely screwed. Give me 3 days, and I'll deliver divorce papers that will make him cry." "I want more than that," Lauren said, and her voice was firm now, without any tremor. "I want him to understand that destroying a woman like me has consequences, real consequences. I want the apartment. I want half the company. I want compensatory alimony. I want everything the law guarantees me and then some." "You will have it," Rita promised. "And Lauren, congratulations for not being one of those who goes back." Those words echoed even after the call ended. For not being one of those who goes back. Because so many went back, didn't they? So many women swallowed the humiliation, accepted the apologies, rebuilt broken marriages on foundations of forgiven but never forgotten betrayals. Not her. Never her. Lauren spent Christmas Day reorganizing her life. She called the bank and ensured all joint assets were properly protected. She photographed the pile of Clayton's clothes on the floor as evidence that he had abandoned the marital home, an important detail for the divorce. She changed all passwords, removed his name from everything that could be removed immediately. At 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. Lauren looked through the peephole and saw Clayton. He looked destroyed. Messy hair, crumpled clothes, deep dark circles under his eyes. Good. She hoped he was suffering. She hoped every second was agony. She didn't open the door. "Lauren, please." His voice came muffled through the wood. "Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes to explain to you." "There's nothing to explain," she replied, keeping her voice calm. "You made your choice. Now live with it." "It was a mistake. I was confused. She seduced me. I wasn't thinking straight." 6 months, Clayton." Lauren leaned her forehead against the door, closed her eyes. "You don't commit 6 months of mistake. You make 6 months of conscious choices. Every day you woke up and chose to lie to me. Every day you looked at my face and chose to betray me. It wasn't a mistake. It was who you are. I'll end it with her now. Today I'll end it, and we'll start over. I swear I'll be—" "I don't want you to end it with her." Lauren opened her eyes, felt strangely light saying this out loud. "I want you to stay with her. I want you both to be very happy. Because in 6 months or a year, when you do to her what you did to me, I'll be far away, living my best life, and she will understand how I felt today." "Lauren, you will receive the divorce papers in the next few days. I suggest you get a good lawyer. And Clayton?" She smiled, even knowing he couldn't see. "Never try to talk to me again. Never show up here again. To you, I am dead. And the woman you knew, the one who loved you, the one who believed in you, that one died too. What is inside this door is something new, something you can no longer touch." She walked away from the door and turned up the volume of the television, drowning out his desperate pleas. Eventually, after almost an hour, Clayton gave up. She heard him leave, his steps dragging down the hallway, and felt a door closing definitely inside her chest. That night, lying alone in the bed she had shared with him for so long, Lauren didn't cry. She was beyond tears. Instead, she opened her laptop and started making plans. The architecture firm would be expanded. She would accept that partnership proposal in New York that she had refused because of him. She would open a branch in the city, hire more people, take on bigger, more complex, more challenging projects. Personal life would be rebuilt from scratch. New friends, new experiences, new places. She would travel to all those destinations Clayton always made excuses not to go to. She would invest in herself, courses, languages, new skills, and most importantly, she would never again put her happiness, her identity, her value in the hands of a man. Never again. Lauren Solar was dead. Long live the new Lauren, stronger, harder, unbreakable. The phone vibrated with another message from an unknown number. This time, it was from Megan. He told me you guys had been separated for months, that it was just a matter of signing papers. I believed him. I'm sorry. Lauren looked at the message for a long moment. Part of her wanted to respond with fury, blame that girl for everything. But the truth was that Megan was just another victim of Clayton. Younger, more naive, more of a victim of the same man. She typed, "He will lie to you too. He will betray you too. It's a matter of time. Get out while you still can." The reply came almost immediately. I already did. At least one of them learned quickly. Lauren turned off the phone, put out the lights, and for the first time in 24 hours felt something like peace. Not happiness. It was still too far away for happiness. But peace. The peace of knowing she had made the right decision. The peace of knowing that from then on, every step would be hers. For her. By her. The most horrible Christmas of her life was ending, but it was ending with a promise. The rest of her life would be spectacular, not despite the betrayal, but because of it. Because nothing forges a stronger woman than being broken and choosing to rebuild herself alone. 3 months later, Chicago didn't recognize Lauren Solar, and Chicago was a city that paid attention. January and February passed in a whirlwind of legal paperwork, signatures, division of assets, and meticulous reconstruction. Rita Constantino lived up to her reputation. The divorce papers she delivered to Clayton were a legal masterpiece that guaranteed Lauren everything she deserved and more. The apartment on Michigan Avenue stayed with her. 40% of Vance International trade passed into her name. 40% because she proved active participation in the company's financial decisions during the 8 years of marriage. The penthouse in the Gold Coast was sold, and the profit divided, although Clayton had protested vehemently. A generous monthly compensatory alimony was established. Clayton tried to fight, hired expensive lawyers, threatened with complex lawsuits, made a scene. But Rita had evidence. Messages recovered from his phone through forensic expertise, proofs of expenses with the penthouse, witnesses who saw him and Megan together in restaurants, parks, events. The betrayal was documented in every sordid detail. In the end, Clayton signed everything, not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. And Lauren? Lauren turned the pain into fuel. The architecture firm, which previously occupied a modest space, expanded to a space 3 times larger in the same historic building. Lauren Solar Architecture now had 16 employees, including 4 talented associate architects she had recruited personally. A branch in New York was inaugurated in March in an elegant office in Manhattan, run by an experienced partner Lauren had met at a conference years ago. The projects changed scale, no longer just high-end residences, but entire residential complexes, commercial buildings, conceptual restaurants, 5-star hotel lounges. The name Lauren Solar began to appear in architecture and design magazines. Specialized blogs wrote features about the architect, who was revolutionizing the concept of minimalist luxury. But it wasn't just professionally that Lauren had been reborn. Physically, she was another person. She cut her dark brown hair into a modern long bob that framed her face. She started doing Pilates 5 times a week, not out of aesthetic obsession, but because she discovered that moving the body helped organize the mind. She completely renewed her wardrobe. Gone was the safe and discreet style from before. In came statement pieces, vibrant colors, architectural cuts that reflected her own profession. She invested in skincare, massages, spa treatments, not to please anyone, but because she was finally doing something for herself. Friends noticed, family noticed, all of Chicago noticed. "You're radiant," her mother said one Sunday during lunch, watching her daughter with a mix of pride and admiration. "You look 10 years younger." "I feel 10 years lighter," Lauren replied. And it was true. It was as if the 8 years with Clayton were a weight she had carried without realizing it. And now, free of it, she could finally breathe completely. But the true triumphant return happened in April during the Chicago Design Week, the annual event that brought together architects, designers, and entrepreneurs from the region. It was the most important event on the local professional calendar, held in a majestic, historic hall. Lauren was invited to be one of the keynote speakers. The theme, Reconstruction, Architecture of Life and Space. When she accepted, she knew exactly what she was going to say. On the night of the lecture, she arrived at the theater 20 minutes early, wearing an impeccable white jumpsuit. Nude high heels, hair down, soft but striking makeup. The auditorium was packed. 300 people, all the important professionals from Chicago and the surrounding area. Some coming from New York specifically for the event. And there, sitting in the 10th row, was Clayton. Lauren saw him immediately. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished. He had lost weight. His shoulders were slumped, his face marked by lines that weren't there 3 months ago. He was alone. Megan, she had heard through inevitable gossip, had left him 6 weeks after the scandal, exactly as Lauren had predicted. Their eyes met. Clayton tried to smile, a pathetic gesture of some kind of connection. Lauren looked through him as if he were transparent and turned to go onto the stage. The presenter introduced her with enthusiasm, listing her recent achievements, highlight projects, and publications. When Lauren took the microphone, the auditorium exploded in applause. She waited for silence to settle, then began. "Architecture is about construction, but before building, we frequently need to demolish. Remove compromised structures, cracked foundations, walls that no longer support anything. It is a painful, noisy, dirty process, but absolutely necessary." She clicked the remote. Behind her, on the giant screen, appeared the image of a historic building in ruins, being demolished. 3 months ago, my personal life was demolished, not by my choice, but by the discovery that the foundations upon which I had built everything, trust, commitment, partnership, were false. And at that moment, I had 2 options. Try to fix an irreparably damaged structure, or demolish everything and rebuild from scratch. The auditorium was in absolute silence. Everyone knew. In a circle like theirs, everyone always knew. I chose to demolish. Another image, a clean plot of land, prepared for a new construction. And I chose to rebuild. Not the same house, not the same project, but something new, something stronger, something that was truly mine. For 40 minutes, Lauren talked about resilience, fresh starts, and autonomy. She used architecture as a metaphor for life, each slide showing real projects she had carried out in recent months, parallel to the stages of her own personal reconstruction. It was personal and professional, simultaneously vulnerable and powerful, honest and inspiring. When she finished, there were 3 seconds of complete silence. Then, the entire auditorium rose in a deafening ovation. Women were crying openly. Men nodded with respect. It was more than applause for a lecture. It was recognition, solidarity, a celebration of a shared victory. Lauren came down from the stage and was immediately surrounded. Business cards, job proposals, interview requests, invitations to events. A woman in her 50s hugged her and whispered, "Thank you. You just gave me the courage to leave my husband." Clayton did not approach. Lauren saw him leaving the auditorium alone, hunched, defeated. She felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not boldness. He was simply irrelevant. The after-party was on the rooftop of a boutique hotel. Champagne, sophisticated appetizers, panoramic views of the skyline under the full moon. Lauren was on the terrace talking to a group of investors, interested in a new project, when she felt a presence beside her. It was Andrew Constantino, a lawyer specializing in business law, and Rita's younger brother. She knew him vaguely from social events. He was 30 successful, handsome in a discreet but striking way. "Incredible lecture," he said, offering her a glass of champagne. "Brave. Thank you. Can I ask a personal question?" Lauren looked at him with an eyebrow raised. "Depends on the question. Are you accepting dinner invitations?" She blinked, surprised. Not because the question was inappropriate, he was respectful and direct, but because she hadn't expected it. Not so soon. Was she even ready? Not completely, but was she ready to move on? "Absolutely. I am," she replied, and smiled, a genuine smile, light, without the weight of old heartaches. "As long as it's in a place with good food and better wine. I know the perfect place." They had dinner 3 days later at a sophisticated restaurant in the city. Andrew was intelligent, funny, respectful. He didn't mention Clayton once. He didn't try to be a savior or a therapist. He was simply present, interested, genuine. Lauren didn't fall in love. It was still too early for that. But for the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine that maybe eventually, when she was ready, she could allow herself to trust someone who deserved it again. Someone who saw her not as an option, but as the choice. In May, Lauren Solar Architecture won a state design award for a revolutionary residential project. Lauren went to receive the trophy at an elegant ceremony. She wore a long red dress, hair in a sophisticated bun, discreet but expensive jewelry. When they called her name, she walked onto the stage with the posture of someone who always knew she would get there, even if 3 months ago she couldn't imagine being alive, let alone winning. In her acceptance speech, she said, "This award is not just mine. It belongs to every woman who has ever had to rebuild from zero. To those who were betrayed, abandoned, underestimated, but chose to stand up anyway. We are not defined by what breaks us. We are defined by how we rebuild." The audience exploded in applause again, and Lauren knew with absolute certainty that she had won. Not because she punished Clayton, although the divorce had been financially devastating for him. Not because she was in a new relationship, although Andrew was an increasingly pleasant presence in her life. But because she had her autonomy back, her dignity, her strength, and no one would ever take that away from her again. September arrived, bringing the fall, and with it, a complete transformation of the landscape of Lauren's life. 8 months had passed since that Christmas Eve that had divided her existence into before and after. The after was being spectacular. Lauren's solar architecture was now a reference not just in Chicago, but throughout the region. The team had grown to 23 people. Projects were popping up everywhere. Each work was a signature, a statement that Lauren Solar was not just a talented architect, but an artist who transformed spaces and lives. The apartment on Lakeshore Drive had been completely renovated. Lauren had redesigned every room, erasing any trace of the life she had shared with Clayton. New colors, new furniture, new energy. The place now breathed minimalist elegance with touches of cozy comfort. It was unequivocally hers. Andrew had become a constant presence, not in an oppressive or rushed way, but organically. Dinners turned into weekends together. Conversations about work evolved into conversations about dreams, fears, hopes. He really saw her, not the version he wanted her to be, but who she genuinely was. And more importantly, he admired her, not despite her strength, but because of it. "You are scary competent," he said one night while they were dining at her house. In an extremely sexy way. Lauren laughed. 8 months ago, she couldn't imagine laughing like that. Free, genuine, without the weight of the past. Scary and sexy, I'm going to put that on my business card. Seriously, you rebuilt an entire life in less than a year, expanded a business, won awards, and you're dating me, who is obviously a catch. He smiled, that smile that made his eyes shine. You are Lauren Solar, and she was. Finally. After years of defining herself in relation to another person, Lauren had her own identity. She wasn't Clayton's wife. She wasn't the betrayed ex-wife. She was Lauren, brilliant architect, rising entrepreneur, a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was worth. At the end of September, Clayton showed up at her office. Lauren was reviewing plans for a new project when the receptionist knocked on the door of her private office. "There's a man here wanting to talk to you. He says it's personal. Clayton Vance." The name still caused a small discomfort, like a scar that itches once in a while, but no pain. Not anymore. "Tell him to wait 5 minutes. Lauren purposely made Clayton wait 15. When she finally called him in, he looked finished. There was no other word. The man who was once her husband was too thin, with deep, dark circles, clothes that were once expensive, but now just looked old. It was like looking at a faded version of who he used to be. "Lauren." He stood at the door as if he needed permission to enter. "Thank you for seeing me. You have 3 minutes." She didn't get up, didn't offer a chair. She just watched him with the same neutral expression she would use with a persistent salesperson. Clayton entered, closed the door, stood there, uncomfortable. Clearly rehearsed, but losing his nerve. "I came to apologize." Silence. "I know it changes nothing. I know it doesn't erase what I did, but you need to know that I regret it every day. I ruined the best thing in my life, and now..." He ran his hand through his hair. "The company is in trouble. Megan left me and took information to the competition. I'm alone, and I finally understand what I lost." Lauren studied him for a long moment. She waited to feel something. Satisfaction at his fall, pity for the state he was in, residual anger for what he had done. But she felt nothing besides a slight irritation that he was there, occupying space in the office she had built with her own hands. "You think I wanted this, Clayton?" he continued, desperate for her silence. "You think I wouldn't give anything to go back?" "I think," Lauren said calmly, "that you are here because your life has turned into chaos, and you think I am a solution. As if I were an object you left on a shelf, and now, when you need it, you decide to take it back. It's not like that. It is exactly like that." She stood up, walked to the window. From her office, she had a view of the heart of Chicago, of the movement, of the pulsing life of the city. "You don't regret what you did to me, Clayton. You regret the consequences for you. It's different. I still love you." Lauren turned and, for the first time since he entered, smiled. Not a gentle smile, but sharp as glass. "No, you don't. You never did. Because to love is to respect, to be honest, to take the other person into consideration before destroying everything. You used me as a convenient object, a trophy, a guarantee. But you never loved me. That's not fair." "Fair?" Lauren walked up to him, and Clayton instinctively recoiled. "You want to talk about fair? Fair was you not sleeping with an employee while I worked to pay our bills. Fair was you not planning a romantic Christmas with another woman using the money we built together. Fair was you having the decency to break up with me before starting with her. But you didn't do any of those things. So don't come here to my office, the space I built alone, to talk about what is fair." Clayton was pale. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong, and that if you can one day forgive me." "I already have." The statement came out simple. True. Clayton blinked, confused. "I forgave you not because you deserve it, but because I deserved peace. To forgive doesn't mean to forget. It doesn't mean giving you another chance. It means releasing the weight that the anger caused. So, yes, Clayton, I forgave you, but I will never want you back." "Lauren, your 3 minutes are up." She opened the office door. In the reception, the staff was strategically busy, but obviously attentive. Clayton looked around, realizing he had no sympathetic audience there, only people loyal to Lauren, who looked at him with the disdain reserved for men who betray extraordinary women. "I still see you around," he said, a final pathetic attempt to maintain some connection. "It's a big city, but our circles are small." "Yes," Lauren agreed. "So I suggest that when you see me, you keep moving, because to me, Clayton, you are a ghost. Someone I knew in another life, and I don't look back." She closed the door in his face, literally, and went back to her desk, to the plans, to the project she was developing. Her heart beat steadily, no tremors, no tears, just the absolute certainty that she had made the right choice at every stage since that Christmas Eve. The receptionist entered minutes later. "Are you okay?" "I'm great." And Lauren smiled genuinely. "By the way, book that meeting with the New York client for Tuesday, and remind me to call Andrew later. We're going to the lakefront for the weekend." Life continued. Better, stronger, more hers. 3 weeks later. In October, Lauren was at the launch of a luxury real estate development in Chicago. It was an elegant cocktail party in the model apartment itself, with a spectacular view. She was there professionally. Her office had been hired to do the interior design for the custom units. Andrew accompanied her. They arrived together, she in a navy blue dress that accentuated her confident posture, he in an impeccable gray suit. They looked like what they were, a powerful, successful, balanced couple. And there, across the room, was Clayton, with a different woman. Brunette this time. Older, also clearly uncomfortable. He saw her immediately. His eyes widened, the color draining from his face. Lauren didn't look away, didn't lower her head, didn't pretend she hadn't seen him. She simply held his gaze for 3 precise seconds, enough time for him to understand the message: I won, you lost, and I feel nothing. Then she turned to Andrew, put her hand on his arm, and said something that made him laugh. They moved away, diving into the party, the conversations, the possibilities of the future. Clayton was left behind, small and irrelevant, exactly where he deserved to be. At the end of the night, as they were walking to the car, Andrew asked, "Was that him? The ex?" "It was. Are you okay?" Lauren stopped and looked at the lake. The waves broke rhythmically. The moon illuminated the white foam. The breeze brought the scent of freedom. Chicago, her city, had never seemed so beautiful to her. "You know something. I am more than okay. I am free. And it was true. Completely, absolutely, gloriously true. The story of Lauren Solar is not about revenge. It's not about making a man pay for what he did. It is about something much more powerful: autonomy. In a world that teaches women to forgive, to give second chances, to be understanding of men who destroy them, Lauren chose a different path. She chose her dignity. She chose to rebuild alone. She chose to never again be defined by the actions of another person. Clayton lost more than a wife when he betrayed Lauren. He lost a partner, an ally, a woman who would have been by his side through anything if he had been worthy. But he wasn't, and the price of that was not just the expensive divorce, or the struggling company, or the loneliness that now surrounded him. It was knowing for the rest of his life that he had something extraordinary, and destroyed it through pure stupidity. Lauren, on the other hand, gained something that no marriage, no relationship, no person could give: the absolute certainty of her own strength, the unshakable confidence that she could fall and get up as many times as necessary, the awareness that her happiness didn't depend on anyone but herself. She didn't need him to be happy. She didn't need revenge to move on. She didn't need to see him suffer to feel victorious. She simply built a life so good, so complete, so unequivocally hers, that his betrayal became irrelevant. And perhaps that is the sweetest victory of all: not making the betrayer pay, but making him completely irrelevant. Because in the end, Clayton didn't lose Lauren. Lauren freed herself from Clayton. And those two things are worlds apart. For every woman who has ever been betrayed, diminished, or underestimated, you don't need revenge. You don't need to make anyone pay. You just need to get up, shake off the dust, and build a life so spectacular that whoever lost you spends the rest of their days understanding the colossal mistake they made. And when they find you on the street, radiant, happy, free, simply smile and keep moving. Because you don't look back. You always go up.